A couple of weeks ago, I made a video where I budgeted out one of my paychecks. So I got into the details. I put down how much I made. I then broke it down by category and what I was allotting each of my money towards and gave quick explanations as to why or how I came up with the values that I was using. More recently, I made a video where I got a little bit more broad about my budget spreadsheet that I use, that I also created, and all the different tabs and things that I track on a monthly basis. So I decided to up the ante, and this last week I challenged myself to keep track of all the money that my family of 5 spends for an entire week. Hi, I'm Jamie, and I make videos for busy moms and families who are looking to get in control of their spending, manage their finances, and just overall feel better about money. I've managed to crawl my family out of the paycheck to paycheck cycle to a point where we've been able to get a new house, a new car, and go on tons of vacations. It's just been fantastic. All right, let's get into the skeletons in my closet. I mean, my finances, just as scary, right? Okay, so this is day 1 in our week of tracking what we spend as a family of 5. It's a Saturday, to give you perspective. The first place that we went today, we actually spent half the day not going anywhere, so we didn't spend any money. But we made up for it in the afternoon because we went to a plant store and we bought some vegetables for our garden that we've been working on. And not just vegetables, a few other things, but all garden stuff. And that was $111.65. So that was fun. And then after that, we went over to the grocery store. We needed a few things to get through food until I get paid on Thursday. And so we ended up spending $215.93 there. And we got a few extra kind of frivolous things, ice creams, sparklers. I'm trying to buy some stuff for 4th of July a little early. So there's a little extra things. It wasn't just straight groceries, but for the most part, it was groceries. And I did go online to Amazon and got a few random things. The kids have been wanting a snow cone machine, so we suckered into that. And I got some sneakers for my husband for Father's Day. So a few random things like that. And that total came to $137.53. So far Saturday, we are spending quite a bit. All right, it is day 2 of tracking our spending as a family of 5. The only spending that we did today was for dinner. We decided that we wanted some boneless wings, and those cost us $48.35. And I need to include that we are like at the end of our last budgeting paychecks, and my husband gets paid tomorrow. And so we are kind of like, we've spent in all of our categories at this point, so there really wasn't anything else to spend. So before we would allow ourselves to buy these boneless wings, my husband and I agreed that the way we would be paying for them is to take about $20 each out of our savings accounts to pay for it. So I share that because I want to just make the point that as long as you are spending intentionally and you have a plan on how you're going to cover expenses, those two things are going to take you through what you need to go through as far as managing your money and staying on track. So keep those things in mind. Plan and then spend intentionally, and you'll be in great shape. Okay, so today is day 3 of tracking our spending. It is Monday. All of our spending is stuff that is going to be paid for with my husband's paycheck. So there wasn't really kind of any extra spending, if you will. It's all things that we had planned to cover as soon as his paycheck came in. So the first thing was $1,740 towards our mortgage. And the second thing is $535 towards our vacation fund. And so that's going to cover a couple camping trips that we have coming up this summer. The next is $137.58 of my husband's personal spending money. So we each get $200 a month, and that's how much he has spent so far. And the next amount of money that we spent today was $700 towards my SUV. And my SUV, that's actually a little higher than the payment is, and we're just trying to get that paid off a little earlier than later. Next was $14.75 in miscellaneous costs. So that was covering something from Walmart, I believe toilet paper. And then next up is $64.99 to the internet. So towards our internet bill that was due. And the last one was $242.43 that I put extra onto our credit card. I was not super responsible, and I actually had a couple of charges from like the week prior that I knew we were gonna have a kind of tiny bit of money that would cover it, and so I went ahead and charged it. So that was actually covering it. So the good thing was I did what I said I was gonna do, and I took the money and made it cover it. The bad thing is that I was borrowing the money ahead of time, and I really try not to do that, but just goes to show you, not perfect. All right, so today is day 4. It's Tuesday of tracking our spending. So not a big spend day, which is great because we can always use that. But the first thing that we did spend on was a kind of a little weird story, but my son had done a fundraiser that he had earned $30 through from kind of friends and family. And so he bought something with that money. And of course, with shipping and taxes, it went a little bit over. So we spent $3.69 on that. And then the second thing that we spent money on today was my husband was at a conference for work, and part of the work conference, they had to pay like a fee to be part of the conference, I guess, and that came out of his own personal money, but don't get me started on that. And then he also got a t-shirt while he was at the conference. The guy never buys anything. I am not mad, but that total came up to $30.90. So total less than $40 today. Can't beat that. But the longer or the more I get into this each day, the more I realize like how it really is hard to go a whole day without spending money on absolutely anything. Definitely comment on that. Let me know, like, do you find that you go most days without spending money, or do you find that it's really hard not to spend some money each day? By the end of day 4, what I am realizing is that it is actually kind of hard to track what you're spending. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but what I'm referring to here is times like my husband got paid on Monday, and so some of that money from his paycheck got put into sinking funds to cover expenses that I know are going to pop up later. So things like some money towards our mortgage or the heating oil that we put away. So that money hasn't technically been spent yet, but it will be eventually. So trying to decide was it spent or not was kind of tricky. But I ultimately decided to leave that stuff out because it's going to cover things in the future and isn't actually being spent this week. So if I take those things out, my total so far at this point is $2,437.80. That feels like a lot. If you consider that that's not including a big thing like a mortgage. All right, so today is day 5, or in other words, Wednesday, of tracking our spending for the last week. And today was a light one, which is good. The only money that was spent today was $21.42 at Dollar General. And I had actually, fairness, went in for just one little snack and came out with candy for each of my children, as well as goggles for them, like swim goggles, because they insisted that they needed the ones that cover your nose. A great example of how you have the best intentions when you go into a place, but kids can totally throw that off. So it is day 6, or also known as Thursday, and I get paid today. So there's money I spent, and then there's money kind of allocated. I allocated $625 to my Roth. I also put some money towards savings, both personally, both my husband, and also some money that we're going to save for oil for when that needs to be paid eventually. And then otherwise, as far as actual spending goes, we did go out to eat. So we spent $48.35 when we did that. We actually got takeout brought to the house. The other thing that we spent was $100 for some kids' sports activities that are going to happen in the fall. And I spent $400 on groceries for the next 2 weeks. And to add to that, so the reason that came out kind of like an even number is because another chunk of the money that was kind of with that order, I do grocery pickup, was miscellaneous stuff. So stuff like laundry detergent, we bought toilet paper. What was the other thing? I can't remember, but there was something else besides just those things. But that came out to $36.70. So the total was $436.70, but split those up just so you can get an idea of what we spent on each one. And then the other thing, 2 things that I spent on was I spent $16 at McDonald's. Love me a good breakfast sandwich. And then I went into the gas station with my son, which I don't usually do, but he wanted donuts instead. And so we spent $4.95 in the gas station. And then my husband was at work today, and he spent $28.29 for lunch. Sometimes he gets takeout there. Again, as I've mentioned, we give ourselves $100 each month to spend however we want. So here it is, day 7. It's Friday, and you're not gonna believe it, but we didn't spend any money. $0. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Usually something always comes up. Like this never happens unless I specifically challenge myself to have a no spend day, which we do. Sometimes it just feels like things are getting out of control, and we need to kind of simmer it down a little bit. And so we just make a decision as a family, my husband and I, that we're not going to spend money. We actually had a no spend day just naturally, which felt pretty good. All right, so for the totals for the week, starting with Saturday, we spent $415.11. Sunday, $243.35. Monday, $1,694.75. Tuesday, a total of $34.59. Wednesday, a total of $21.42. Thursday, a total of $1,259.29. And Friday, a total of $0. Put all that together, gave us a grand total of $3,718.51 for the week. Just hearing that number really shocks me, actually, that we're spending almost $4,000 in a week. My brain immediately kind of goes to like data and science and all that good stuff. And you do have to remember I had 2 paychecks happen. So my husband's paycheck and I got paid on the same week. So I'm wondering now, is that a little bit higher because we were paying some extra things that we don't do every week necessarily? Or, does this really actually average out as a normal week for us? So I'm really intrigued by that. And I think I need to track another week where there are no paychecks just to see how that kind of compares. And makes a difference. But I will say too, one of the things I was shocked about was how much random stuff actually comes up. Like, I think the biggest thing I got out of tracking our expenses for this last week has got to be validation for kind of the adjustments I've made to our budget over the last few years. I've had to really kind of get honest with myself about what we're spending our money on, the types of things, and then being really proactive to actually create sinking funds for those things and paying those things like bills. And then it's just made all the difference between us overspending and sticking to our budget. And every time we're able to stick to our budget, we're able to then use our money the way that we actually wanted to use it. Like, we would never have money for vacations. We never could have moved like we were able to do almost 2 years ago. Like, none of those things would have happened if it weren't for putting those systems in place and then using them the way that we have. So if that sounds like something that you're very interested in, you've got to check out my other video that I made on my budget spreadsheet, so you can kind of see all those pieces and maybe get a few ideas on places that your money could be going. And that video is called The Budget System That Changed Our Family Finances Forever. It truly has. And, please subscribe. I'm going to do some more budget updates, and I'm going to do some more spending tracking. And hopefully it's helping you to see some real numbers that somebody's actually grappling with. So see you in the next one.